Hey everyone, welcome to Art Chat. My name is Justin Donaldson, and today we're joined by Naomi VanDoren. Naomi, how are you doing?
Doing really good. Yeah,
Good.
been a good day so far.
That's good to hear. What have you been up to?
All kinds of things. I guess kind of top of mind right now is I just finished proof, like editing my novel. So I've got like the
Oh
actual
yeah.
proofs in from the printer. So that was all of yesterday. And now I've just like kind of wrapped that up and sent off the files again for that to get finalized. It's been a lot of work, but a lot of
Yeah, I
fun.
bet. That's so exciting though. So
Yeah.
tell us about the novel.
Oh, sure. It's a lot of what I love about world building and exploration, and a lot of like the nature and outdoors, kind of all wrapped up into a story.
Uh-huh.
I like storytelling a lot, and so for me, this was kind of like the next level of creating illustrations and just like small little stories. It was diving fully into like a whole world with characters and all of that. It takes place in this tropical fantasy world. It's Naya and the Fox Dragon are the two main characters. Naya and
Yeah.
Arden, sorry. um, yeah, there's so much to say about it. It's taken about 2 years to work on. I spent the first year really learning how to write, and
Right.
then the second year was diving into illustrations. So yeah.
How's the process of writing been
Mm-hmm.
different and been similar to your kind of your art process?
There's some really cool similarities and obviously lots of differences too. What I love about writing is when I start with an illustration and when I start with a story, it sort of starts very similarly. Like I often start with words. Like I'll start with like a word list or a lot of like miscellaneous ideas that aren't really organized.
Yeah.
And then the process of writing and the process of illustration is just refining those like loose gestural kind of strokes or like a very very rough draft and making
Yeah.
it just cleaned up over time. um,
What
I think
can you
tying the similarities together helps a lot actually for me personally.
Yeah. What do you said normally have like a loose collection of words. Um,
Yeah.
what does that normally look like? Like are
uh
we talking like associations or
Yeah, well, for
yeah, okay.
illustrations, it's much more simpler. So, like, for an illustration, I'll usually start off with a theme. So, I'll have a couple of theme words. I'll write those down on like I often start in Photoshop with my like really rough ideas. I'll start in there, write down a couple of the themes. I might pull in some colors or some other pieces of work that I've created that I want to kind of continue on. So, I like work in series a lot. So that
Yeah.
reminds me again what I was kind of going for as far as like the initial idea. And then from there, it's then kind of building up very loose, sort of sketchy shapes.
Uh-huh.
And then I like creating cool and interesting things from a little bit more of a like a subconscious state. Like it's just finding like this sort of undertone of gestural strokes. It's not going in and saying this is a face, this is a tree. It's very much
Okay.
more about that kind of what does it feel like, and then I'll like add in perspective and like the proper colors and all that kind of stuff afterwards. So
So a more subconscious state, is this kind of the state that you're in, or just how do you encourage that? How do you get yourself into the right spot where you can
yeah,
do that kind of work?
I definitely have to. I usually have to have my like music going. Like I try to eliminate like outside distractions. Um, but because I've been able to find it more often, I know where to go just mentally much quicker. I think I used to probably rely too much on needing to be in the right mood or like finding the
Uh-huh.
right inspiration. And like for me, I don't need that as much anymore. I can just like now is work time. Now is time to think about creative new ideas, and then usually starting those first thing in the morning rather than trying to push those towards like later in the day when I've maybe have had other like stressful things going on and those might be interfering.
Right.
That's usually at least where I start. But
So keeping yourself kind of fresh,
yes, yeah,
undistracted.
definitely. I mean, if I needed to, if it was later in the day, I could go out for a walk, kind of get that refreshed sort of mental state by being outside and a little bit of exercise,
Yes.
and then come home and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. New ideas, everything's open. There's no like negative feelings involved. So
That's exactly what I do. I think I
yeah,
normally have this like walk in the middle of the day where I go, and if I don't go, then everything is kind of just dragging down, or like,
Yeah.
but if I come back and I have like the energy to start again with everything.
Yeah.
I rely
Yeah,
on
it's
that probably
amazing.
way too much, but
No, you're fine. Because I'm working on my second book now. A lot of that started from I like to start with an outline. I don't necessarily start with like a very, very strict outline at first. I'm just more interested in like throwing any ideas down on the paper. Like,
yeah.
if you could do anything, what would you do in this story? Usually it's a little bit more structured, like not just anything, but okay, I have a world established. There is maybe a couple characters that I'm working with already that I need to then continue their story. But for that, like, well, their possibilities are endless. And so I start putting the ideas down on the page or in my document, and then I can start like tying the strings together where, oh, these two things would play together well, or this is available for me to use later on as an idea if it was helpful. And then from there, I can start to kind of develop a little bit more of an arc, a little bit more of a theme. Finding a little bit more logic to some of my characters in that process. They tell me things though, too. So.
They tell you things. They talk to you.
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool. So how often in all of the things that we're looking at now, how often are you kind of starting with the story versus starting with an image or that collection of words you're processing through?
Oh, sure. For my illustrations, if I want it to be a part of a greater story, so like my Fox Dragon pieces, there might be a little bit of a story there, but usually if it's a standalone piece, even in a series, I'm often going more for mood, theme, words, more so than a story in specific. Because I kind of want to, I always want to hint at a story, but I'm not going to go like flesh it out. I'm not looking for like, I don't even have character names. Yeah. It's often just more like, this is a tiny piece of a bigger whole, if that makes sense. Because a lot of these, I am either leaving it up to the interpretation of whoever's viewing it, and I have my own sort of interpretations for it. So it needs to read, but it also doesn't need to be so specific. Be like, this was this point in time in history. This is why this happened, X, Y, and Z. Like that to me is, at least for the illustrations that I intend for people to enjoy and kind of have as standalones, I feel like that's a little bit over the top for me. But
yeah, well, that's a really interesting thought about kind of the difference between your intention and what somebody else gets out of it. There's kind of a tension there, or something really fun to explore. How much does you communicating what you're intending? Do you care what other people think about it, or like so long as you kind of get the message yourself?
Yeah,
you're happy that that's going to communicate across?
I think there's a bit of a letting go. Like when I make a piece, then it's outside of me, and then I no longer I feel a connection to it, but it's always going to be internalized. Like it's always like I might talk about it, but I don't feel like it's something that needs to be applied to everybody else's experience. And so because I have that separation after I made a piece, I don't ever really feel like there needs to be this reinterpretation of it from someone else in the same way. Like it's always open-ended for them to experience it and see whatever it is they see in it. And I don't know, like I think that can be really healthy. It allows me to kind of continue moving on and not get stuck in like, oh, this has a certain meaning to it. And I don't know, like I make art for other people to enjoy is my primary drive, my reason for creating. And so if that's the reason, I don't want to make work that must be a very specific thing. I mean, it does have its own moods. It does have its own feelings. It has common themes everybody sees, but they're picking those up in the things that I designed into a piece. So I've just done a good job of designing it well, and they're picking up on that. I guess you could say.
That's really cool. So what is your process for painting? How do you normally come about it? They look like watercolor.
Yeah, so most of my work is watercolor. All the pieces that are in my shop, except for I think I might have 3 pieces in there or 2 pieces in there that are digital.
Gotcha.
My traditional process at least for half of it, is very similar to my digital. Like the whole designing phase, the stuff that
Yeah.
you don't really get to see, like the whole like ugly stage, figuring out all the ideas and all that stuff. I do all that in Photoshop. So I'm pulling in references. I'm pulling in, a sketch. I'll flip it, destroy it completely, and then start over again. That's all on the computer. And then when I get to the line work stage, right now I'm doing line work in the computer, and then I print it out and then move to watercolor over top of it. And when I get to
So
that stage, it's just relaxation time. It's
you're
wonderful.
are you printing onto the watercolor paper, and then you're
Yes.
painting directly on top of it?
Yep.
That is really cool.
It's very freeing. I love it.
Yeah, I bet. And I love that just using technology for all it's worth. Like I love
Yeah.
that. That's a very freeing idea to me.
I think more artists should give themselves like permission to do that, because I
I
was in
agree.
kind of a weird mental state. I was like, no, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm like, well, who said you're not allowed to? Like, that's silly. So
Yeah, I mean
yeah, it's fun.
it's so ingrained that like before the very minute you said that, it
Hmm.
wasn't even a possibility in my head. Like it wasn't even
Yeah,
something that you could do as a part of your process. And then you said it,
of
and I was
course you
like,
can.
of course,
Why not?
that's amazing. Like absolutely, that is so cool. It's like a little hidden gem. So
Yeah.
what are the kind of the themes in
Mhm.
your work that you kind of see pop up again and again?
I guess if you could summarize it, a lot of my work is nature based. Like it's very,
Hmm.
there's a lot of that nature flowing through it, but I call it adventure inspired. It's often a character, maybe two characters in an environment, and some sort of story kind of thread. It's not, very specific, as I was saying before.
Yeah.
Um, and that's very consistent in a lot of my work. Like I love that theme, and I keep going back to it. And there's so many ways to explore just that little piece of a theme that
Right.
it's endless. It's wonderful.
So are you intentionally, or maybe you are now, but at the beginning of when you started doing this, were you intentionally doing that, or was that just kind of naturally?
Um, yeah, I've been doing that for, I want to say more like maybe about 4 years. I really dove into that, like specific, like
Yeah.
this is what I connect with. This is what my audience connects with, and I want to make more of that. I definitely I've been exploring for longer than that. Actually, no, I'll just say longer, because I
Yeah.
remember before, I've been doing watercolor for about 6 years, and even before that I had stuff that was very nature immersive based, even in a different medium. So there was hints of it then. I don't necessarily know if I executed it as well, but it's been a consistent thing.
Were you scared to kind of make a commitment?
Oh,
It,
like switching over?
yeah, just deciding, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Like,
Oh,
or was it more natural, less thought driven than that?
less thought driven. I think it's
Yeah.
always been more of a progression of uh, repeating themes, seeing that kind of thread, and then really just kind of doubling down on the stuff that I really enjoyed. So just having not made enough work before was probably the only thing that I wouldn't be able to, like, that's why I wouldn't have come to that conclusion this fast, because I
Yes.
just didn't made enough work. So
Right. Right. It is hard to see it when you don't have that much work. It's hard to see the
yeah,
threads.
and you got to
Um.
try everything until you know if you like it or not. So
Yeah.
there's a few things I'm like, oh, so and so is making this kind of work. I should try that and see if I enjoy it.
Uh
And
huh.
there's stuff I still appreciate, but I don't want to make it. So I'll just
Right.
appreciate everybody
Absolutely.
else's.
So what kind of stuff is that? Generally what are we talking about?
Ah, oh, appreciating. I mean, there's a lot of my friends that do, very painterly style work like yours.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's wonderfully immersive too. It has its own light qualities that I really enjoy. It's similar stuff to some of my work, but
Yeah.
then when you go even further into like people that do like amazingly detailed characters, and like
Right.
the design elements of character design, I really appreciate. And I am moving in that direction a little bit, but my drive isn't really to just design characters. I really
Yeah.
enjoy the play between that and an environment. So
What is the emotional payoff that you get on focusing on environment and character in environment? Like, where does that come from, or where does that lie?
I think, I mean, I guess often the drive and the payoff, it's very kind of escapism in a way.
Yes,
Like
definitely.
there's that this piece is a good one, like a portal sort of
Yes,
feeling. Um, that yeah, that's just kind of why I guess I do that for myself. I do that for other people,
yes,
which then ties into the whole like writing and storytelling bit too, where it's like,
right.
oh, well, this is an escape. This is another place you can go see and explore. Um, yeah,
Did your growing up, did you need to escape? I know,
actually,
I know. For me,
yeah,
I did. I
you
absolutely
needed
did.
to.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. Like, I think for me, I actually had a lot of that escape as a
Uh,
kid because I grew up in the tropics and like these very crazy environments. I had a lot of that inspiration now coming into my work. So there's a bit of an escape because it wasn't everything. Like I lived in a third world country, so
yeah.
there's
Where'd
definitely
you
a lot
live?
of. I lived in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. So
I knew that.
it's got a bit of both. It's paradise, but then there's a lot of other stuff mixed in. So you are escaping in some sense. And then as a kid, I also remember just I don't know, like even now as an adult, I want to communicate some of what I found there as a child.
Yes.
Like some of that wonder, that otherworldly feel of just untouched nature. Um,
Isn't it
yeah.
amazing?
It's definitely yeah.
I,
It's very hard to describe.
it is. I have a feeling that like we're like programmed for it, programmed to appreciate it and to like thrive
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. It's like turning on like a certain part of your brain. Like we would do a lot of traveling when I was growing up because we would travel to and from Indonesia to go back to the US a couple of times. So going back and forth, we might go wander through a couple of other countries. But
Yeah.
learning how to see, like as a young kid, I feel like really has helped me become an artist that can create these sort of immersive environments. Because I remember just being in a place and kind of absorbing what it felt like and what all the other unseen elements, I guess, to an environment that I can kind of collect and put into a piece.
Can you define for me learning how to see? What does that
Mm,
what does that mean?
for me, it means like enjoying in seeing a place for more than just its lines and shapes and physical elements, seeing it for what it feels to you emotionally. How does it um, what is being conveyed as on a different level? Like
Right.
why are you connecting with this? Um, what little bits stand out to you as important? Um, absorbing color in a different way that is more of an emotional experience and not just like a scientific, like this color is
Right.
going on over here. Because and it sort of happens when I guess you do kind of allow yourself to see more colors that um, the eye can only see so many, and we see amazing things that we can't capture with our phones, for example. Remembering what a
Yeah.
feeling and association and absorbing those colors that we can see, then reinterpreting it in our own way back into artwork can create some really cool things. So all of those kinds of themes for me is what I mean by seeing. When I
Yeah.
when I see an environment or I see a place, it's beyond just what I might take with a photo.
Yeah. And there's a process of learning to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there anything you did to sort of help yourself or encourage yourself to learn how to see?
That's a good question. um, well, let me see. Um, I know for me, I've taken the time to really, it might sound really silly, but I learned this technique from a horse whisperer. She's a friend of ours. She has a herd of horses here in the California area.
Mm-hmm.
And she allows herself to be grounded when she's working with her animals.
Yes.
And that way they can connect with her and they understand her body language and they can read her. Well, that whole communication, that grounding yourself where you just kind of allow yourself to stand just in a stable manner, in a very like connected way. It's kind of woo woo. It sounds weird, but it's totally amazing. Just allowing yourself to be present is how I've been able to see. So I feel like everybody comes up with their own ways of like kind of getting there. For me, that's the easiest way. And
Yeah, so my wife
yeah.
actually works with horses. And
Oh,
so
cool.
she's sort of in and a part of this whole community. And there's this idea that, just like you were talking about, horses like reflect on you.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're because they're like terribly, they're prey animals. Like they run, and they from everything. They're so
Yeah.
sensitive to people and to emotions and attitudes that if you come to them and you're carrying a certain degree of emotional baggage with you, they'll just
Mhm.
completely change the way that they respond to you. And so when you're working with horses, you need to learn how to sort of assess your own emotional self and
Yeah.
bring and hold space that says, like, I might be feeling this, but I'm not going to put that on you, and you're feeling
Mhm.
that, and it's not. And so there's that grounding that you're talking about. And I know my wife has helped me with a lot of this stuff too,
Yeah.
in learning how to be that way, which is kind of, it's naturally how I think we're supposed to be, but very unnaturally,
Yeah.
the product of our growing up.
Yeah, for sure. That's wonderful. I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
That explains a lot, I feel like, too, when you're able to put aside your own emotion and really assess a place that
Right.
what does that feel like, and you're not implying like adding on your own your own baggage.
Right. Yes.
Leaves you with a wonderful sense of refreshed, just feelings too.
It does. Absolutely. Um, so I actually had some questions for you, not
Sure.
from me, but from people that I asked, what they might
Oh,
want to learn from you. Um, and they ended up being business questions.
cool.
So I suppose we can sort of switch gears for a minute
Sure.
here. Um, what what are some of the things that you've learned about being an artist and being an artist who sells your work and makes a living? What are some of the things that you've learned that maybe you weren't expecting to be true or expecting to learn? Some of the surprises for you,
Oh, like
perhaps,
unexpected things.
perhaps even just revelations.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. And very unique too. I've never heard of that one before. Um,
Well, how about I'll make it easier for you right now? What's kind of the
yeah.
most important thing to you for making sure that you're running a business that is both creative and you know inspired, and you just yourself, you're not compromising, but
Yeah.
also like successful?
Yeah. I think, and this is from the beginning too. For me, it's been really important to stay really connected with my audience. Um, and that I feel like is even more important now, especially with how like everything is going. Just reconnecting with the people that have put me where I am at, the people that have been supporting me all along, and the people that I'm making art for. Like I make art for
Yeah.
myself, and I find that communication is sort of, that's the finishing of a piece is really how someone receives it. So just I guess being always aware of that throughout my business, like, and being able to kind of navigate with that in mind has really helped a lot as far as business goes, and just making art for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the practical outcome of that look like?
It usually means that you make products that are successful. Generally
Well,
speaking, it's
we
something
like to
that,
do that.
exactly, you try to. It means that if you're more in tune with their needs and with what they're excited about, that you're both excited about, then you can communicate in a way that they understand. And that just, it sounds very like clinical. It's not like, it's
Right,
wonderful.
right,
It's a
right. It
cool
is.
conversation to have with people. Um, and it just builds on each other. Like the more the connection that you have, the more exciting it is to make work for that. And you're not like going out just to make art for my audience. Like I still make art for me. That's what got this all started. But because I'm able to talk about it in the way that they understand, we can have a conversation. It's not just all about me right now. It's more about
Right.
what did I find, and I'm going to share it with you. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So
It does. It does. So you're talking not about changing what you do to fit an audience that you have,
no.
but by finding a way to communicate about
Yes.
what you do for yourself, finding a way to
Yes.
communicate about that in a way that communicates to the audience
Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah, because if I
Yeah.
make something, it's a form of communication as a finished
Yes.
piece of art, but talking about it is its own animal.
It is.
So if I can't
It's
talk about
crazy.
it, then nobody's gonna understand what I'm going for or why they would care about it or what connects them to it even more than just seeing it. So
And what are
from a
some of the
business standpoint, it helps a lot.
yes? What are some of the main things that you like kind of make sure that you talk about or how you talk about it?
Yeah. A lot of the themes for why I make work is one thing that I feel like my audience and as a business person, at least the way I've taken my business,
Hmm.
I feel like that's a big part of it. Like not just sharing finished pieces, but the whole process from inspiration, from like we were talking about, like all this kinds of stuff, like
Yeah.
that emotional beginnings, that kind of communication,
Hmm.
into like really very boring things like I'm having a sale. This is when you should get it. This is where you should get it. So it's the full spectrum. It's very emotional and like it's wonderful to communicate to the like, okay, now I have to send the fifth email about my Kickstarter, which is still going on. Please don't miss it. So it's the whole range.
That's
But
it's tough. I just went through that myself because we just I just put out my landscape painting course,
yeah,
and basically everything for that is closed, and now the course is about to start running, and
it's exciting.
it is exciting, but it's very difficult to have that process because at the beginning you're kind of like, yes, these are the emotional benefits, and I can talk to you on an emotional level, and these are the things that we'll get out of it. I'm excited about it, so you're excited about it. It's like, and at the end you're like, okay, this is like the 10th time I've emailed you,
Yeah.
and I want to keep up that same energy, but at the same time I need to be a little more kind of just it it's a really hard combination when you get to the point where you're really just needing to give details, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
I think as
always
a
yeah.
business, it's helpful if you have a certain voice that you consistently speak in. So if you're looking, we're speaking to people that are looking for business advice. I think it's very helpful if you sort of develop that early on. It happens over time too, but that way you're able to maintain that level of maybe not over the top enthusiasm throughout the whole thing because that just sounds impossible, but you're still able to come back to that mental place of like, this is what we're talking about right now. I am talking to my audience as a person that creates something. Um, this is the voice I speak in, and that way you don't have to also bring in any negative baggage too.
Right.
It's always on this other. It's on a different level. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so the last question, looking at the time, this probably is the last question. The last question
okay.
from somebody else was, um, so you have, how do you keep your online store? How do you sort of keep it or manage it or arrange it or having things open all the time versus in small time periods? Like, what's your
Okay.
general way of doing this?
I've got a couple different ways. So right now, I like to keep my store usually open all the time. This last year, I played with having it turned off for a little while. I needed to shut it down just because I was working on Kickstarter stuff, and I didn't need the distraction.
Yes.
But generally, I prefer to keep it open, and I do run. Um, I do some limited edition prints here and there. My main mode of working is kind of releasing collections of work. So I have a new release coming in June 1st. I'll be releasing all of my mermaid stuff, which I'll be creating throughout the month of May. So it's
Nice.
kind of just building up to that kind of release of pieces. But I do have other commitments. So sometimes that interferes with it. Like I have an online gallery I work with every month. So I have a new piece that comes out for them on the 25th with Everyday Original. So it's a bit of a balancing act, I guess.
What's the benefit of having a collection versus maybe just like selling things as they come?
For me personally, like I've done it other ways before and I don't mind. Did not recommend those. Like those work fine too for other people. For me personally, I feel like it's easier to put all my energy into something that I can create, spend time creating, and then do all the marketing, like other kinds of stuff after the fact. And by putting it into a collection, that means I can do more of it in like larger chunks. So if I
Yes.
were to do an art piece, release it, an art piece, release it, like that's a lot of like rinse and repeat, and it's very like I don't know that I feel like that's very tiring and a really fast way to burn out.
No, yeah, that's a
Um,
really good point
yeah,
because that there's a lot of time and energy management. I think that's very
yeah,
wise.
yeah. If you
Yeah.
can collect it into one time period, even if it's like a week of work and then you release it, like
Right.
it just, yeah, it frames it a little better.
And then you can turn it also into an event,
Yes. Yeah.
an event that you can sort of bring people in and just make it a thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of, it's funny how important it is to make something a thing,
Yeah.
even though it's like that's really undefinable or very ambiguous, but
I
also
mean,
holds really
it
true.
could be. Yeah.
It could
But
be.
it's a chance to tell a story about it too. Like
Yes.
that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Like even if the story is very vague or very loose, you still have a theme that you created the pieces around, or you have a reason for releasing them all at once. So talk about that. Yeah.
So when you do a release, how much time and energy are you putting into this? The one in June, okay, as an example.
Yeah.
You have something coming out in
Um,
June. How many pieces
yeah.
is it?
So I've got 10 pieces planned. I'll be working on those throughout May, but I've got all of them already designed, and I'm just working on the line work now.
Oh, nice.
So I'll be
Yeah.
doing like all of that work up front. I'll probably be ready and have all of them done by maybe the end of the first week or the middle of the second week in May.
Mhm.
So I'll already have like the first ones done, and those will be releasing as we go. But I'm working ahead, and this is not as ahead as I would like ideally. But yeah, getting that all ready. And then also, like last November, I did a photo shoot and had products made already.
Yes.
So this is, I have a series, a new pin that I want to release, and a couple of other things that were going to be a part of online or in-person events that didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to now release them online instead, which I had planned to do, but I was not really sure when. So this was a good time.
Good.
So
That's exciting.
yeah.
Well, we hit the end of the episode, so thank you very much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So thank you very much, and we'll see everyone later.
Thank you. Bye.